What's up, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here. I'm back with episode 24 of my GT OMSCS vlog, and today I'm incredibly excited to talk about the first assignment of CS 6475, Computational Photography, which was the Camera Obscura assignment. So it was pretty interesting. There was no coding in this. We just kind of had to do a little bit of arts and crafts in the beginning and then draw some conclusions and write a report afterwards. And so if the entire class was just taping up boxes and taking cute pictures with my phone, I'd probably be a little bit concerned and a little bit surprised, but I do think that this explained a lot of the fundamental concept of how camera works really well. And so even though it was a little weird to be doing arts and crafts, I totally get why they assign it, and I'm glad they did because I learned a lot. So before we get into that assignment, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I am vlogging my GT OMSCS degree, so Online Master of Computer Science at Georgia Tech. This is the first assignment of my third class, so we're coming up on a year now, assuming this class goes well. And yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. I'm also making just general content about professional development for young engineers like me. And so if any of that stuff interests you, I highly recommend you like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, let's get right into this vlog episode. So what is a Camera Obscura? A Camera Obscura is effectively just a pinhole camera. So instead of having like an optical system with a bunch of lenses that you can use to focus and, you know, a CCD in the back that reads in light and makes digital images based on that, a Camera Obscura is from, like, you know, the ancient world, and you're effectively just squeezing light through some kind of pinhole, and then it comes out the other end and projects an image onto a rear screen, right? And so in order to do that, like, you need a really big light differential between the outside scene, which has to be really well lit, and the inside of the box or whatever Camera Obscura you construct, which has to be really, really dark. And so this is how, like, in the ancient world, they would, you know, kind of take images where they would project this kind of thing onto a back screen and then sketch over it. So it's before modern cameras, right? It's just kind of a physical way to leverage the pinhole camera model, which is a much, much simpler version of the general camera model that we've kind of learned in subsequent lectures, where the general camera model has like light come in from a scene, and sometimes there's artificial lighting depending on if you're doing like a photo shoot or a movie or something, but there's lighting in the external scene, and then it's focused through a series of lenses and hits a CCD, which then reads in that stuff into an electrical signal, which ultimately becomes like a digital image. This is much simpler than that. There's no lens, there's no CCD. You're just squeezing light through a hole, right? And so we were effectively tasked with building one of these pinhole cameras. So they prefer that you do it in a room, and I did make a real college try to turn my room into a Camera Obscura, but I have very, very large windows, and so it was hard to make sure all of the light stayed out, and also I have crap all over my apartment because I just moved into it, so that was a little sketchy to begin with. But I made a couple of attempts at turning my room into a Camera Obscura, but ultimately decided to just do it with a box. I definitely understand why they recommend you do it with the room, though, because I already got a lot of value out of really seeing how a camera physically works, and I wasn't even like inside the camera. And with the room, you're able to be inside the camera and really get a better visual of all the geometry going on. So I totally understand why they prefer that, but at the end of the day, for me, it was just infeasible. So I went with the box Camera Obscura and definitely still think it went really well. So I won't get into the specifics of like what you have to do, but effectively you're coming up with, you know, relationships between like the diameter of the pinhole and the brightness or the blur in the image, and then, you know, the distance back that the rear wall of the box or your room, if you did it in a room, is, and like the FOV of the camera, right? Because you need room on that back screen to actually capture a wide image. And so you're basically just deriving geometric relationships that are pretty easy to do analytically, but you actually have to do them physically this time. And again, that's why this was a super interesting project to do. So you do a bunch of those computations, you write up the report, and yeah, basically just present your findings. I would say the one thing I didn't like about this assignment was just that the report was really, really heavy. And so I would say, honestly, like creating the box and taking the pictures was maybe a third of the work, and the other 2/3 was report, which at the end of the day, the report forced you to actually learn the concepts that you use to do the Camera Obscura. So I get why it was so heavy this time, but if that ratio were to continue where like I'm writing itty bitty code and then writing a giant report, that would probably get pretty frustrating and disappointing. But my, you know, initial conclusion looking at the next assignment, which I'll discuss in a moment, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, you know, the coding is getting more intense, and arts and crafts were, and the reports are getting a little bit less intense. So we'll see. But yeah, I really like this assignment. Speaking of the next assignment, the next one, A2, is about image blending, right? So we're trying to take two images and blend them together without like a sharp edge, right? So whether you kind of have an image that's bisected and you're trying to stitch two halves together, or you're trying to do some weird thing like stitch an eyeball onto a hand, or take like two dolls and take the head of one and put it on the other. Like you could do some weird, strange things with this. But if you're trying to blend images together without like a sharp edge that's really noticeable to the human eye, then you have to do some really interesting like frequency analysis and blending with those frequency spectra instead of the images themselves, which is pretty cool. I really enjoyed it as somebody who's a bit familiar with FFTs and all that kind of stuff. So I've watched the lectures for those. Gonna start the real like coding of the assignment in the next couple days. But so far, I'm pretty optimistic. I think this will be cool, and I'll actually get to see what coding in the environment, the GitHub environment that they've created for us is like, using stuff like OpenCV and NumPy and all that. I do have those packages set up using an environment that they give you. They only give you a Conda environment, but I'm more of just like a base Python venv guy, so I just converted it from a YAML to a requirements.txt, set up a venv, and we're good to go. So yeah, all that's done. I'll be doing that over the next couple days. And yeah, overall, I'll just say, some of the red flags about instructor communication, written communication primarily, because I haven't been to office hours or anything, written communication and the assignments and Canvas and all that stuff, like it's still ringing true. But the lecture content is really, really good. I'm enjoying the lecture content a lot. I think it's incredibly high quality, probably the highest quality I've seen in the degree thus far. And the first project was pretty good. And I think of all the projects is probably the least interesting and applicable, as fun as it may have been. So I think it's only up from here in terms of the assignment. So yeah, that remains to be seen over the next couple days. Overall, satisfied with how the course is going so far. And yeah, that's about it for me. So thanks a lot for watching. This is episode 24 of my grad school vlog. So for the next few months, I'll be vlogging my computational photography journey, a couple projects, I think a couple exams, if I remember correctly, or at least written stuff to do, like peer feedback and all those things. But yeah, I'm really excited to learn about this stuff. It's part of why I took the perception and robotics specialization, because you get to do computer vision and comp photography and all these things. Excited for this course, excited for whatever comes afterwards. And yeah, I've just been vlogging my entire grad school journey up to now. And if any of that stuff is content that interests you, I highly recommend you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week with the image blending assignment.